So I have a question about my two of my 6 children are coaching. Their coach is an MMA coach, and they're trying to get in the circuit. So there's a lot of influence, and he's a very godly man, but not Catholic. Recently, he gave them each a Bible and is starting a Bible study with them. And again, in that sport, there's a lot of respect. It's all about respect. So they kind of feel, called to go. My question to you is: this Bible? Let me get you to get to a different thing. It's called the Passion Translation. It's a New Testament Bible with the Psalms and the Songs and the Proverbs. Yeah. And my question is there anything I need to be concerned about them being led astray? We Catholic homeschooled all 6 kids, daily mass, all of that. They're in their 20s now.
So it's the Passion Translation we want to know. Are there any problems with that?
Okay, so the Passion Translation is a fairly recent edition of at least part of Scripture. It is not a Catholic translation, and as far as I'm aware, there is not a version of it that is approved for Catholic use. So there's not like a version that has an imprimatur, as far as I'm aware. Having said that, I wouldn't automatically rule it out. What it means, if there is an imprimatur, is that it can be used in more circumstances in the Catholic Church, but there's no barrier to read in church law. There's no barrier to read in Bibles that don't have an imprimatur. You just need to be a little careful with them. Now, in regard to the Passion Translation, my understanding is that even though it bills itself as a translation, there's actually some discussion about whether it's technically what's known as a dynamic equivalence translation, which is sort of a loose translation, or whether it crosses the line into being what's known as a paraphrase rather than a translation. And that line can be a little hard to discern. Now, one of the advantages of both dynamic equivalence translations and paraphrases is they can be much easier to read, but they achieve that readability at the price of risking greater translator bias, because either the translator or the paraphraser has given themselves considerable liberty to rephrase things in a way they think that will be more understandable. And that means that they are risking injecting their own ideas into the text to a greater degree than if you're using what's known as a formal equivalence or a literal translation. I don't say don't read dynamic equivalence translations or paraphrases. They can actually be quite useful, not only because their readability, but also because they can help you see new possibilities for what the text might mean. But I think you need to balance, anytime you're using one of these looser translations, you need to balance it by reading another translation that is more literal, so that you don't become completely untethered from what's in the original text. Now, the best way to be sure you're not becoming untethered from the text is to read it in the original Greek, Hebrew, or Aramaic. But that's not possible for most folks just because they've never studied those languages. And so the best alternative is to get a literal or formal equivalence translation, like, for example, the Revised Standard Version Catholic Edition or the English Standard Version or something like that, and read both. So you get more than one perspective. And that's really the value of any Bible translation, is it gives you a perspective on what the text says. And having different Bible translations of different kinds will give you multiple perspectives, and that's better. That having multiple perspectives is better than locking yourself into just one perspective and just using one translation. It's actually better if you use multiple translations with multiple different translation philosophies. So that's what I can mention in terms of the Passion Translation. I would say if they need to go to this Bible study or they want to go to this Bible study, that's okay, but pair it with a knowledge of their own faith and pair it with a more literal translation that they can compare things to.